It is also very important that you elevate your opposite arm to block. The goal is to land your strike before your opponent can land his kick, thereby reducing all power behind his kick.
Mantendo a distância, rápido.
But in case your timing is off, it is very important to put up your block. This is another technique for evading and countering an opponent's round kick. Reading his movements, I see that he's about to throw a round kick. As a result, I step my lead leg back to evade his strike. It is very important to keep your hips square until you rotate for your kick. If you move your center of gravity as you step back, not only will it take longer to evade your opponent's strike, but you will also lose power in your kick. It is important to move with your opponent. As he enters with his kick, you step back and then throw your kick. Once more slowly. As he kicks, I retract my front leg and throw my kick. Now I demonstrate how to counter an opponent's round kick using a spinning back kick. It is a complex technique. You have to turn and kick to your opponent's stomach before he can land his kick. So your opponent kicks and you turn and kick with him. When you spin, it adds power to your kick. A little faster now to show the movement. Once more, my opponent kicks, and I turn and throw a back kick. Now I will spar with my brother, countering his round kicks using the techniques I just demonstrated. In this technique, I step my lead foot to the outside of my opponent's body, leading him to believe that I will throw a round kick. Normally, my opponent will attempt to counter my movement by throwing a jab. However, immediately after stepping my lead foot to the outside of his body, I move to the opposite side of his body. Not only does my footwork cause my opponent to miss with his jab, but also puts me in a perfect position to counter with a cross. A little faster. Once more slowly. A little faster. Now faster. I do the initial step already knowing where I'm going to go. This is another technique you can use to counter your opponent's jab. It also works well when your opponent doesn't throw a punch. Either way. So my opponent throws a jab and I step to the outside of his lead foot. In addition to removing my head from my center line and causing him to miss his punch, it sets me up to throw a ridge hand strike to the side of his jaw. I can strike with the blade of my hand, or I can strike with the first two knuckles. Once I strike my opponent, I hook my left hand across his body and hook my right hand behind his lead leg. To get the takedown, I push into his chest with my left hand and pull his left leg with my right arm. Now at normal speed. Like I said before, this strike can be done with an open or closed hand. When you strike your opponent's chin, it is very effective. It works great to counter your opponent's jab. You want to hit your opponent's chin with your strike. The technique is applied the same when you're countering the jab as you would when entering with this technique. After landing the strike, one hand goes to his chest and the other hooks around his leg. You can strike with an open hand or a fist. After landing the strike, you immediately take him down.
Jogou o jab, entrei, sempre aprumando o adversário.
After executing the takedown, always end up on top of your opponent. Here I demonstrate how to counter an opponent's rear hook using a straight cross when in opposite fighting stances. To begin, I spot my opponent's hook coming and step my lead foot to the outside of his lead leg. At the same time, I throw a cross straight down the pipe. Because a straight punch has to travel less distance than a circular one, I land my strike before he can land his. Immediately after landing the cross, I follow up with the lead hook to the side of his jaw. Notice how I circle my rear leg around as I throw the hook. This gives me an even more dominant angle of attack, making it more difficult for my opponent to follow up with another strike. Slowly. Now fast. This is the same situation as the last. My opponent and me are in opposite fighting stances, and he throws a rear hook. Spotting his punch coming, I counter with the cross. However, in this situation, my strike forces my opponent backwards. Instead of following up with a lead hook, I throw a front kick, step forward to switch my stance, and then throw another cross. The kick can be to your opponent's stomach or to his face. A little faster. Slowly. In this scenario, my opponent steps forward and throws a cross, and I evade his strike by stepping backward and throwing a cross of my own. This utilizes both timing and distance and works wonderfully against fighters who like to advance when they throw punches. Instead of holding my ground, I will step back and counter. When you throw your punch, it doesn't have to be straight. It can come from over the top. Slowly. Faster. You step back to avoid the strike, and then push off your back leg and throw the punch. Now fast. This is another technique for evading the cross. However, instead of retreating backward, you step off to the side to evade your opponent's strike. At the same time, you counter with the lead hook. Landing the hook will open a pathway for the uppercut. And once you land the uppercut, hook your hand around the back of your opponent's head, pull his body into you, and throw a rear knee to his midsection. Normal speed. Now fast. Once more, slowly. I exit with the hook and then enter with the uppercut and the knee. Fast movement now. This is yet another technique for countering a cross. In this one, my opponent throws the cross and I slide my lead foot back to my rear foot to create distance between us. Once accomplished, I throw a front kick with my rear leg, step my kicking leg forward, throw a jab, and then follow up with a cross. Although my opponent initiated the attack, I am the one landing strikes. A little faster. Now slow.